Okay. So the record is on. And today we will speak about the first step of management. We will speak about scientific management school. I'm sorry about asking you. Do you hear me? Do you see me? Do you see the presentation?
Yes, yes, it's okay.
Okay, great. I'm sorry about asking because it's a little bit unusual situation for me because I can see only the presentation and nothing else. Usually in Zoom I can see my face speaking and even when I'm presenting something, and I can see some participants in small windows. But if you see me, if you see the presentation, it's great. So. Generally, last time we spoke about some pre-managerial activities. We spoke that even in ancient times we can find some parts of managerial functions, some parts of planning, organizing, motivating, and controlling. But nobody had an idea that this human activity, I mean management, is really separated activity, and we can, if we want to be successful, I mean our organization, if our organization wants to be profitable, we have to invite professional managers. Not only professional workers, but also professional managers. And the first man who really understood this situation was Frederick Winslow Taylor. Here is his face. And in 1911, he published his book Principles of Scientific Management. And that's why we look at him as a god in management, because he was the first who provide a definition of management as a recognized field of human activity. Uh, it's not a mistake about this year of publishing his work, because a little bit later we will speak about some articles published before this year. When speaking about Kant, he published his works in 1910. But uh, you know, everything what was before Taylor was just like pieces of a picture. Some maybe instruments, because even if we take, I don't know, any paper of Niccolo Machiavelli, can we say that it is some planning, some pieces of planning? Yes, sure, we can. If we take some papers of Karl Marx, can we say that there are some pieces of management, not only economics? Yes, sure. But Frederick Winslow Taylor was the first who separated management. This is very important. But I decided to use this picture because during our several next lectures we will speak about these steps of management science. Today we will speak only about the first step, only about scientific management school. But how to say. You have to understand why the first step is so important. Because after Frederick Winslow Taylor, people they became thinking about management as a science, as a separated activity. But before speaking about his work, his paper, I decided to present you very interesting information why management as a science was born in US. Actually, in the United States, actually, it looks a little bit strange because if we compare economics of Europe in that times certainly, with economics of United States, I think would be less than 10% compared with Europe. It's not the contemporary situation, believe me. But management was born not in Europe, not in United Kingdom, because in that times the United Kingdom was the biggest empire, the most powerful economics in Europe, but management was born not in United Kingdom but in the United States. Why? There are four important driving forces why management was born not in United Kingdom but in United States. First, in that times, the United States was practically the only place where the clever person could take a good position. You know, even now, in Europe, you can face some bad attitude, bad behavior maybe toward you, even if you know English well, or German, for example, if you want to take some position in Germany. If you are smart enough, especially this unpleasant situation connected mostly to ladies, but not only, but to men also. So even now, to prove that you are smart enough to take a good position in United States is much easier compared with Europe. And in that times, it was only the only place where you could take a good position, not at the basis of your birth, for example, or that your blood is blue like this. No. It is the first a very important situation, and actually we are trying to communicate with our students who graduated from our English-speaking program, and some of them now live in the United States, and they moved to US from Europe. And when I asked them why they did so, not only to the United States, but also to Canada, to United States, to Canada, they told, the answer was that in Europe, it was rather difficult for them to promote, and in America, it's quite a simple thing. If you are clever enough, if you're smart enough, so you are welcome to take a better position. The next, maybe you remember history, economic history. A lot of people decided to move from Europe, especially from United Kingdom, to America. especially to United States. And this set of people created a big pool of hardworking laborers. And you know that to organize a big number of people is quite a difficult task. That's why we need to use some formal operations. And I forgot to tell you that you know why it was important and why the first point is connected to management, because you know that at all positions and especially at all managerial positions in United States, it was smart people, not only rich but smart, you know. So we can use some specific managerial instruments, sorry, not can, but could in that times, some specific managerial techniques. The next, there were enormous, big, huge number of hardworking laborers, so we had to organize them somehow. And also it was possible only using some specific techniques. You know, you can think about this situation even now. If you want to launch some maybe rather simple business, and you will be an entrepreneur, so you will be a worker and a manager in one person. So your budget will be only just I mean budget not in money but in the form of in the organizational form. Your budget will be just a table in Excel, and that's all. You don't have to use some specific techniques. But if you want to manage a big business, it's not possible to do it with only simple techniques, non-managerial techniques. The next. In Europe, maybe you don't know this situation, but in Europe in that times, it was possible to get to be educated only if your blood was blue, you know. So it was rather difficult to get a place in a university. You can say, yes, we can set you an example. Yes, I totally agree with you that we can find some exception from this general rule. But the general rule was that in Europe, education was only for rich, extremely rich people. And in the United States was the main principle, education for everyone who wanted it. So that's why we can, our subordinates and general managers was not only smart, but they were educated. You know that a person could be smart but not educated. So being smart is like our potential capacity to do something, yes? And education plus being smart is much more effective instrument in this particular situation. So in the United States at that time, it was a big number of clever, educated people. And the last but not least, you also must remember economic history a little bit at least, that United States was a huge country, and the enterprises of that times were also extremely big because it was monopolies. Mostly connected at the first step, always monopolies were connected with railway business, but not only. And it is the same situation if it is a great, a big, huge enterprise. There is no way to manage this enterprise without specific managerial instruments. And so these four driving forces, they just like shouted, provide us managerial instruments, please help us to organize our business in the most effective way. And I would say a lot of scientists work at this problem, and the first scientist was Frederick Winslow Taylor. Who provided the first book in management. I'm coming back to our previous screen. It is the general scheme of this lecture and to next lecture when we speak about schools and approaches to management. Today we are speaking about the first school of management, scientific management school. First of all, I'd like to stress about the meaning of the word school in this very situation. You know, in this very situation, we are using the word school, it's not like the place where young boys and ladies are educated after the kindergarten. No, it is the meaning, the second meaning, it's like connected, for example, to philosophy. Maybe you know this meaning like the school of some man in philosophy, the school of Archimedes, for example. Yeah, it means some people whose ideas were not, I would say, same, but in one direction. So, and all these people were not sorry united. They worked separated from each other. For example, today we will speak about Frederick Winslow Taylor, we will speak about Gilbert, and we will speak about Gant. They worked separated from each other, but they worked in one direction. And in that times, nobody used these term scientific management school. Only then, when in contemporary times people decided to think about history of management, they separated all steps of management into the following like steps. So, if you ask me whether Frederick Winslow Taylor knew that he worked in scientific management school, no, definitely no. Shame on me, I tried to find in the internet who was the first to use these categories like these steps, the title of the steps. I didn't manage to find it. So in all book connected with management, you can find these steps: scientific, administrative, human relations, behavioral, blah, 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 schools. So please don't ask me who was the first to use these titles. I don't know, shame on me, but still now it doesn't matter. The most important thing is to view at this situation not from the present moment, but from the past moment. And really, this man was the first who published and who separated the book connected with management. And he was the first who understood, who realized that if we organize a working process of our subordinates in the most effective way, our profit will be bigger. So we have to study people's behavior, and we have to study their performance after this situation. And we have to compare performance after different ways of behavior. And but in this situation, under the term behavior, I mean only technical procedures, not behavior in social understanding of this very word, because Frederick Winslow Taylor thought about people, I would say, as about robots, maybe. So we have to educate a person, we have to provide to a person some fair payment. We will speak about it a little bit later. And this person will work for our enterprise. From the present point of view, it's not like this. It's not like this. We have to think about a lot of problems except these. But in that times it was real breakthrough. That's why under behavior in this very situation, I mean only the technical task and technical procedures and behavior of a person within these technical tasks. And he decided to begin analyzing the most important problem of that times. If you remember also economic history, what was the main source of energy of that times? What was the main source of energy? Do you know? Okay, it's silence. I will help you. Coal. Yes, coal. And so he decided to analyze this process, and generally his idea was the following: that if we increase efficiency of this process of supplying the energy, so in this very situation, the productivity of our enterprise will be also bigger. The efficiency of our generally of our enterprise will be also bigger. So he decided to analyze only one position at his enterprise. I'm stressing that under position I mean должность, да, которую занимает человек. So he decided to analyze the work of a person who put the coal using a shovel, and he discovered that at his enterprise everybody must have his, usually I say he's a her, but at this position, this position was rather difficult. That's why only men worked at this position. So every man used his own shovel, and somebody has better, somebody has worse show, and what is much more important, every show had a different capacity, and he began thinking about, first of all, we have to calculate, it is his first, we have to calculate the capacity of the show. We have to calculate the maximum weight. You know that if the show is too small, yes, it will be possible to work all the day, but the temperature will be not very high. If the show is too big, so the temperature of heating will be very high, so our productivity will be very good, our efficiency, but it wouldn't be possible to work at this position. You must be a Herakle, for example, to work at this position with a huge show. So that's why if too small is not good, too big is not good, so in the middle, it must be optimum, yeah? It must be an extremum in this very function. So he found, in empirical way, he found this extremum, and this extremum was in 21 pound capacity. Pound is, if speaking in raw figures, is about 400 grams, so it's about between 8 and 9 kilograms, more closer to 9 kilograms. So he, having found this capacity, he succeed in producing these like best shows for his workers, and output of these managerial activity was really phenomenal. And this situation, this situation is the first like victory of modern management. So not we, but Frederick Winslow Taylor organized activity of workers, and he got some output from these managerial activities. So, and we can add to this situation that, here, having defined this capacity, he also defined the minimum characteristics of a worker to this position. So if it is possible to work within all working day with the show, so this worker works good. So he deserves the fair payment for this working activity. If it's not possible for him to work with the show because it's too hard, too difficult for him, so he had to move to another position. And this, having defined the best way to perform some procedure, is a way to defining the fair payment for some for performing of some operation. And generally he created 4 main principles of management. The first, that a manager should study workers who perform some tasks, because now it looks quite obvious for you, yes? So I think you don't, you can't even imagine that it is possible for a manager not to analyze the activities of our subordinates. But in that times, managers, they didn't care. In my, not in my, but in Taylor's example, regarding shows. So everybody had to buy his own show, and nobody cared about the form of this show. And Taylor was the first who said, okay, we have to analyze the activity of a worker. Then, having understood the general description of the activity, we have to select and we have to develop our employees. Not only to analyze their activities, but we also have to prepare workers to this activity. We will speak about it in details a little bit later today. Then we have to provide detailed instruction. You also can't even imagine that before Taylor, managers did not support workers with some instruction. So you have to do it, and that's all. We don't care how, the way you do it. Now it's quite obvious that we have to, now it is quite obvious, maybe because of the situation, that operations are more difficult, more complicated, I would say. But in that times, people didn't think about this situation. And the main, I would say, the main idea, the most important idea of Taylor was that there are some managerial activities, and we have to use managers to organize non-managerial stuff, and if we succeed in this situation, so it will increase the general efficiency of our enterprises. The next scientists to be discussed in today's lecture are Frank and Lily Gilbreth. I decided to take this picture. Here is Frank. Here is his wife, Lily. Actually, they had more than 10 children, and the situation, not all children are this picture, believe me. It was a typical situation in the United States for that times, very big family, but I would say, the life of, especially of a woman in that times, was, I would say, first of all, I wanted to say awful, maybe not awful, but really hard. But they were, I think they were really happy, like a family, because in all his paper he wrote, "Thank you for my wife, thank you for my wife for supporting me." And most of his papers signed not like only Frank Gilbreth, but Frank and Lily Gilbreth, so like two scientists. So he always added the name of his wife. It's like maybe a small tip to men and to ladies today, that you have not only to think about your career, but you have to think about your people who will support you, or you have to think about your family, because it's also important. And here is a great example. Then even having a huge family, they managed to publish a lot of scientific papers. But I'm discussing these two person, I mean Frank and Lily, not only about they were really happy as a family, but because they made also a breakthrough in the in the sphere of management, in management science. Actually, they decided to analyze another very important process. They decided to analyze constructing. You know that in that times, the United States was like a plate, on the plane, a few big cities, and that's all. And we need to build a lot of buildings. That's why people tried to increase efficiency of constructing business, and they decided in this stream they decided to analyze a working activity of bricklayer. Brick means kirpich. Who doesn't know? So bricklayer means like a person who build a building from bricks. Actually, it's rather difficult to find an equivalent in Russian language. Maybe kamenщик, something close but not equal. Okay, bricklayer, especially who build building from bricks. And he found very interesting situation. Okay, here is the result of his activity that Frank and Lily, they managed to increase efficiency by 250%. Can you imagine? 230%. And the main way how they managed to do it was how they discovered that every bricklayer used some sets of motions, and it was possible to decrease some, to remove some motions from these set of motions. For example, first of all, I need to, I don't know, take a brick. Okay, then I used to do like this. And if somebody teach me not to do this wasting of time operation, so the general efficiency of my working activity will be much higher. So let's discuss the way they managed to found this technique. They decided to use the photo camera, and actually I managed to find some pictures created by Gilbreths. And here is the only picture I managed to find in the internet. And but generally, what they did, they used effect of stroboscope. I think everybody, at least everybody from you, I mean, everybody at least once visited a club, and in club here is the situation, it could be the situation, then a lamp is blinking, yes, and if this lamp is like blinking, it's like effect of stroboscope, the people when we look at them, they are moving like this, like these small steps like this. So they decided to use generally the similar effect. So he made pictures with the interval of 1 to 2000, 1/2000 of a second, and he managed to find 17 different operations and hand motions. Then he decided to teach bricklayers how to use only like useful motions, and very important that he they Lily and Frank, they named these small motions as Ferbricks. It is their surname backwards, from the first to the last, Ferbricks. So here they managed to educate workers to use only useful motions, and the outcome of this activity was increasing the productivity by 250%. What is, if we compare, before speaking about Gantt, if we compare what is similar between Frederick Winslow Taylor and Frank and Lee Gilbreth, they both understood that if we increase a working process of our important positions of our workers who were working at the most important position in our enterprise, the general efficiency of our enterprise will be increased. So, and the difference is only technical. I mean, in between Gilbreth and Frederick Winslow Taylor. The first Frederick Winslow Taylor worked at the position. He analyzed the position of a man who put coal, and the Gilbreths, they analyzed a working process of the bricklayer, but generally the ideas was totally the same. So if we manage to educate a bricklayer to use only correct motions of hand, so it will be possible for us to calculate the fair payment. So we know that theoretically it is possible to put, I don't know, 2,000 bricks per day. So if we are using the correct technique, so if a person manages to do it, so he is a good guy, not a good guy, maybe correct. He used the correct set of motions, and that's why he must have the fair payment for his job. And if somebody, if it's not possible for somebody to complete this job, I mean, in these volumes, it means not that our objectives are unattainable, unachievable. No, it means only that we have to educate this very person for this very position. And the next person who is analyzed in today's lecture is Henry Gantt. Actually, you can pay attention that he published his book in 1910. I marked it. But generally, why we speak about Frederick Winslow Taylor as about the father of management? Because Henry Lawrence Gantt he discovered only one instrument of planning, and we will speak about this instrument in several minutes. And Frederick Winslow Taylor, he created a management system. This is the difference. Henry Hunt, he faced the situation that if we have a lot of tasks, it is rather difficult for us to understand, first of all, the sequence of tasks, and the second, if some task can be done in parallel, it is rather difficult for us to understand. Maybe we can have some time reserve. And for these purposes, he created a Gantt chart. It was named after him because he was the first to do it, and it looks like this. In the left column, we have to we have to mention all the operations. Here is. And here is the duration of operation, and what is more important, it is the sequence of operations. Here is, you can see the most simple chart. Here you can see the maybe a little bit more complicated diagram. So here is, and this generally diagram is done with the help of project expert. It is software. I'd like to say that during your fifth course you will have the project management course, and during this course we will speak, not we, but you will work with Alicia Borislavovna at these problems, how to create a project, how to manage a project. But generally the first stone in the basis of project management was put by Gantt by providing these important techniques. So nothing is complicated in this situation. It only means that we have to put all tasks, and then we have to, and then please pay attention. Here is the first column is the name of the task. The second column is the duration. Here in this very example, in days. And when you are thinking about the sequence, so you have to put first of all in your head, and then you have to mention it in this chart. That, for example, before it's not possible to begin the first task before the zero task is made. For example, it's not possible in our course project. It's not possible to begin preparing the first task without the zero task, without taking some character, some cartoons character. Okay. Okay, I will come back to this little bit later. You will discuss these Gantt charts during your practices with Olesya Nikolaevna in details. But generally, I would say not maybe in details, a little bit more in details than during lecture, but believe me, in project management, you will work with project expert. It is special software, so it will be a little bit later. But he worked, I mean Gantt worked not only at this technique, but he worked also at some other problems. He contributed some other points to management as a science. He contributed, first of all, he contributed that we have to, he contributed the idea that we have to analyze all operations of our subordinates. Then we can use some bonus system at our company. So he added to fair payment of Frederick Winslow Taylor that we can pay not only like pure salary, but it could be some bonus system. And he also added that every business must be socially responsible. So he can be taken also as the first, one of the first, not the first, one of the first scientists who built basis of social concept of corporate social responsibility of business. What is the same among all these scientists? First of all, we have to increase productivity of every worker, and we have to use financial incentive to increase productivity of a worker. And if we use financial incentive, money, so our subordinates will work hard for our enterprise. For the present point of view, it's not true anymore, because people always think about something more than only financial incentives, and we will discuss this situation in a lecture when speaking about Elton Mayor, who was the first to discover this situation. Then the next contribution, we have to separate managerial work from non-managerial, and when using planning as a function of managerial activity, we have to plan activity of our subordinates, because only having planned, having created procedures, it's not my mistake. I decided not to use the word strategy, because in that times people didn't think about strategical management, I would say. So let's take another, maybe a little bit simple, more simple word as a procedure. Okay, so we have to create an algorithm, a procedure, and only having created this algorithm, we can expect the good performance from our subordinates. And generally, the main breakthrough of scientific management was that these scientists divided managerial activity from non-managerial activity. So Taylor stressed that it must be a manager, and this manager had to do nothing by his hands, but he had to do everything by his brain. So, like the general review of scientific management school, the best way of performing tasks. Remember, solve in the case of Frederick Winslow Taylor, and bricklayer activities in the case of Gilbreth's. Then a selection of worker, we have to train them, and we have to select the best worker for every activity. We have to provide, we must provide workers with some resources. Please remember that before Taylor, everybody must buy his own show by his money. And we have to use money as a financial incentive to increase productivity of our subordinates. And the main breakthrough, as I told you, separation, planning and thinking from the actual work. Now I've finished with the lecture. So any questions? No. Okay, so the next task is to create something like this for your character. How to do it? You don't have to. Okay, I will stop the lecture, the recording, and then I will just a moment, and then we will discuss it in details.